Kirsten Gillinbrand and Jefferson Smith. Kirsten Gillinbrand is the most dishonest and corrupt politician in government at present. Her cursing and recent performances to get more media attention are just that, sick performances to get attention. Maybe she's going to run for Trump's desk chair in 2020. For years, she was an upstate New York State conservative state senator who was one of the most staunch pro-gun, pro-Second Amendment politicians in New York State government. Then, in 2009, Hillary Clinton leaves the U.S. Senate to become Secretary of State in the administration of President Hussein. And suddenly, Gillinbrand converts to the Democrat Party, is appointed to the U.S. Senate, and suddenly she's one of the most staunch anti-gun, anti-Second Amendment in all of government. Curious, right? Not. It's obvious that Charles Schumer, Elizabeth Warren, and other members of the swamp sat her down and told her, you want a Senate seat for life? Here's what you're going to do. Senate seat for life or better. Senate seat for life or better. Like running for president. She gets to talk for the rest of her life until she croaks about, well, I got to run for Senate. That makes me really big and important. Here's some dialogue from the motion picture Mr. Smith Goes to Washington that I bet was a very close facsimile of what was said to Gillinbrand before she was appointed to the Senate. Jim Taylor, corrupt businessman who owns the state Mr. Smith represents in the Senate. Ah, Senator. He actually, if you remember the movie, if you haven't seen it, then you should see it. It's available all over the place online for free. It's a very important movie for Americans. Okay? Jim Taylor is the corrupt businessman who owns the state Mr. Smith represents in the Senate. He got wind that Jefferson Smith might be interfering with some corrupt legislation he's got his goons in government preparing to set up. One sec. Ah, Senator. I was just passing through and thought I'd like to meet you. Sit down. You've met all the boys here, I suppose? They tell me you've been right on your toes since you got here. Well, that's fine. You know, some people told me that you were dumb. I think you're smart. In fact, I think you're smart enough to understand a situation when it's explained to you. Senator Smith, young senator too stupidly honest to be corrupted by Taylor. Like what, sir? Taylor, such as building a dam on Willett Creek. Smith, just what's your interest in this, Mr. Taylor? Everybody in the room laughs. Taylor, well, anything that benefits the state is mighty important to me, owning a lot of its industry, newspapers, and other odds and ends. Now, if I thought you had the welfare of the state at heart like I do, I'd say you were a man to watch. Now, what do you like? Business? If you like business, you can pick any job in the state and go right to the top. Politics, huh? If you like being a senator, there's no reason why you can't come back to that Senate and stay there as long as you like if you're smart. Smith stands up, obviously getting increasingly perturbed at what he is slowly realizing he is hearing from Taylor, and gets right in Taylor's face. Taylor, now you take the boys here. Taylor doesn't realize it yet that this guy is about to destroy him. Now you take the boys here. Or Joe Payne. Smith thinks Senator Payne is his hero without realizing it yet. That he is corrupt and under the control of Taylor. That's because Payne, before he got into the Senate and went corrupt, was actually a young struggling lawyer who was partnered with Taylor's young struggling newspaper editor father. Smith thinks Senator Payne is his hero without realizing yet that he is corrupt and under the control of Taylor. They're doing all right. They don't have to worry about being reelected or anything else. They're smart. They take my advice. Smith, now glaring at Taylor, are you telling me you tell these men and Senator Payne what to do? Taylor, these men and Joe Payne have been taking my advice for more than 20 years. Smith, gritting his teeth in anger. You're a liar, he says, looking a few inches down on him, staring right into his face from about 2 or 3 inches away, his nose almost touching. Expression on Taylor's face changes from smile to a frown. He looks down. He's not used to honest and brave people who cannot be intimidated by him. He used to being surrounded by yes men. Smith grabs his hat and stomps out. The difference between the fictional Senator Smith and the surreal Senator Gillinbrand is that Gillinbrand sold out, while Smith spat back in the corruptor's face. The sad and part of the reason is that Smith's a man and Gillinbrand is a woman. Women are weaker, and they're more prone to give in to threats and intimidation and corruption. The sad reality of our society is what I call its post-mortem period. In what I call its post-mortem period is that fictional fears from movies of the 30s have become our reality. This society is thoroughly corrupt from top to bottom. That includes the people as well. Actually, it begins with the people. The only reason we can have corrupt businessmen, corrupt advertisers, corrupt corporateers, corrupt people in government is because the people are corrupt. Part of the corruption is simply that they just don't care because they're so fucking fat and comfortable and disgusting that whatever happens, as long as it doesn't disturb their fat pigness. That includes the people as well. The leadership can only become corrupt because the populace have become corrupt and aren't willing to do what it takes to stop them. Anybody in this society who is not actively trying to get rid of these people is not only part of the problem, but are as corrupt as the government careerists in DC themselves. It's like I've been saying for years, people in America don't give a shit about anything unless they can either eat it, fuck it, or accelerate it. You can't have it both ways. That's the corruption. They're well fed, they're well fucked, they're well fed, they're well sexed. They've got plenty of toys and more toys, dreaming of future toys. They'll let the government sink into a fucking shit pile. To anybody who's reading this, I ask you directly, what are you committed to doing to fix this country before it becomes a full-blown dictatorship and dies? If you cannot answer convincingly, then you are as corrupt as the Clintons, Mr. President Hussein, Charles Schumer, Elizabeth Warren, James Comey, Andrew McCabe, Mark Warner, Bernie Sanders, Patrick Leahy, Dianne Feinstein, Al Franken. Like many of them, he's just a pathetic clown. Claire McCaskill, Cory Booker, Orrin Hatch, Tim Kaine, Nancy Pelosi, reality winner and cohorts, Adam Schiff, the slimiest fake smile in all of Congress, Elijah Cummings, Keith Ellison, Hakeem Jeffries, Paul Ryan, Maxine Waters, and all the rest of DC snakes and alligators swimming around in the swamp. If you've been in the Senate for more than 2 terms or in the House of Representatives for more than 3 terms, then you are corrupt by definition. If you wear a business suit and tie to work, then you are dishonest by definition. What are we going to do to change this reality? Senator Kirsten Gillinbrand is the poster child for corruption at the federal level. She is, in fact, the most corrupt person in Congress today. And that's saying a lot, because almost everyone in Congress today is corrupt and disgusting. Before Obama chose Hillary Clinton to run the State Department, Gillinbrand was a staunch upstate New York State Republican with very conservative views, pro-gun and pro-Second Amendment to the extreme. I used to enjoy sound bites with her where she's forthrightly and honestly supporting gun rights and the Second Amendment. It's like when they go corrupt, one of the things you see is that they put this fake front as their pretend personality. The purpose of the fake front is to give the people, give the voters, give the listeners anything they want to lie and pretend that you are something, or you believe in something, or you will do something that's total bullshit to get them on your side, to get them to like you, to get them to accept you, to get them to admire you, and most of all, to get them to elect you. You see it in all of these fucking fake, phony part of the thing they do is the fake verbiage. They start to say, just repeat cliches that so far they've witnessed people be successful with in terms of indoctrinating and propagandizing the listeners, right? So they equivocate, they pivot, they use fake terminology, they use cliches, they use glittering generalities, especially the generalities in general. I mean, they speak in a way that goes beyond truth functionality, you know? Like in logic, there's 3 forms of locution: statement, question, and direction, okay? And logic is not concerned with questions or directions. A direction is like second person, like you go take out the garbage, or you go kill yourself, or you go kill Senator Gillinbrand, okay? That's direction. That's directive locution, questioning locution, and statement locution. Statement locution is a statement of fact. It is either true or not true. Undecided, but that's not a conclusion, all right? If it's undecided, that means we can't figure it out yet. Undecided is like God exists. God exists is a truth functional statement. So if I say God exists, it's either, in terms of formal logic, it's either true or false. So people start bringing evidence for each one. People might say, I know God exists because he's the first cause of the universe, or I know God exists because it's in that. And then counter-arguers will say, well, I know God does not exist because there's evil in the world, or I know God does not exist because of the Holocaust, quote unquote, or whatever, right? But either way, you can mark the statement depending on your belief or whatever as either T or F. I'm sorry. That's a problem that a lot of Americans have in their thought processes. They don't understand that there's T and F, but the direct negation of T is not F. The direct negation of T is not T, right? So what's the difference? There's a difference, okay? There's a difference because it's mathematical logic. And in mathematics, the purpose of mathematics is to convert words to numbers or symbols, to symbolize statements. The branch of logic called philosophical logic is primarily concerned with what in logic is referred to as translation. So translation would be how I take a truth functional statement and convert it into a symbol that can be easily manipulated, like variables in algebra, or X, Y, Z in algebra, or numbers. So then Obama picked, so before Obama chose Hillary Clinton to run the State Department, Gillinbrand, a quick lesson in mathematical logic. Before Obama chose Hillary Clinton to run the State Department, Gillinbrand was a staunch upstate New York State Republican with very conservative views, pro-gun and pro-Second Amendment to the extreme. She was the best champion of the Second Amendment in the entire New York State government. Then Obama picks Hillary Clinton to be the 67th Secretary of State of the United States. A vacancy opens up in the U.S. Senate, a seat for one of its 2 senators. Gillinbrand has a secret meeting with New York State Senator Chuck Schumer and other Democrat leaders in Congress and in Obama's administration. They wanted to make sure that she was going to toe the line and just echo whatever it is they're saying, right? And this is where you see a person change. They realize that they can have lots of benefits. Lots of things can come to them that they like. Status, slaves, people to wipe their ass for them. Meetings with elaborate fruit setups and finger food and all kinds of lobster and all this expensive food wheeled in on carts to their meetings to make them feel like they're more important than they are. And then the linguistic change starts. And they start speaking in glittering generalities, and they start The purpose of the fake front, the narcissistic front that they put up once they become corrupt, is that to hide anything that's controversial. They just pull back and they won't engage in anything controversial, which means that they will not show what their real feelings are, because that might alienate or push away voters or potential likers. Okay, because there's also a narcissistic part of the personality too that monitors and governs these types of statements. You know, there's a great quote from a movie Gilda from the 40s. It goes, when a man becomes weak enough to take a bribe, he's already a dying man. And I imagine it applies to women even more. Suddenly she changes parties, turning Democrat after years of Republican Party membership, not just for her, but for her whole family. She comes from staunch Republican people, born and raised in Republican country. She doesn't just change parties, but begins mouthing the same left-wing liberal platitudes and nonsense as other members in her new party. In particular, she becomes one of the loudest voices in Congress against the Second Amendment and gun rights, joining the chorus of anti-gun nitwits in her new party: Schumer, Clinton, Obama, Rice, Pocahontas, and all the other completely corrupt politicians in the Democrat Party. Something smells awfully rotten here. Can you smell it? If not, maybe your nose is broken like most Americans today. The ironic parallels between Jefferson Smith's fictional description of his naive but incorruptible U.S. Senator in the Frank Capra classic movie Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and the other reality of Kirsten Gillinbrand's totally corrupt change of party and change of ideology, change of mouthing. We don't know that deep down inside she still feels the same ideology. We do know that she represses it and pretends that she doesn't feel that way, and she pretends to feel whatever way she thinks will make people like her, accept her, and vote for her. As a result, and resulting in her appointment as U.S. Senator from the state of New York. Jim Taylor, Jefferson Smith dialogue from Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Taylor, this is a different version of it. I'm repeating it just because I want to see if it sheds any deeper light. I happen to be passing through, Senator. I wanted to meet you. Thanks for coming. Sit down. Jeff hesitates, looks at the men, his eyes resting on Payne a moment. More and more puzzled, he takes a chair just a step away. Taylor, well, I hear you've been right on your toes since you got here, pitching right in. Lots of people took you for dumb, but they're wrong. You're smart. In fact, I think you're smart enough to understand a situation when it's explained to you. Smith, like what, Mr. Taylor? Taylor, well now, just to take an example, putting up a dam on Willow Creek. As I look at it, that dam's going to do a lot of people of our state a lot of good. Smith, yes, so I was told, Mr. Taylor, but, Taylor interrupting, but you have some objections here and there, and may be right for all I know. But the point is, there's no sense stopping the whole works now, especially after some men have worked hard for a long time to put this through. What is your interest in this, Mr. Taylor? Mine? Why, naturally, whatever benefits the state is mighty important to me. Owning a lot of its... See, this is how the corrupt phrase things, okay? He says it's mighty important to him, it's a very generalized, not easy to pin down statement why he says this, what he means. He's trying to imply, corruptly, that it's mighty important to him because the state and the people are important to him. He wants them to thrive, okay? But that's not it at all. It doesn't mean that he isn't happy to see that happen as a result, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is for him to get money and power. So he says mighty important to me, and then we can, and then corrupt, like newspaper people could say, oh well, he's making lots of money, but he's also doing the state a lot of good. Owning a lot of its industry, newspapers, and other odds and ends. That's a funny one too. Odds and ends. He probably owns a lot of shit. If he has this much power where he can install or remove U.S. senators, he's got a lot of power. And if I thought you had the welfare of the state at heart, like myself, for instance, if you were to turn around and help a project like this along, instead of standing in the way, why, I'd say you were a man to watch. For a fellow your age, you'd be in a spot to make a great start in life. If you like business, you could pick any job in the state and go right to the top. Or politics, If you like being a senator, no reason why you can't come back to that Senate for the rest of your life. I like the way he says that Senate instead of the Senate, okay? The script writer, the guy who originally came up with the ideas and the wording for this project, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, the movie, probably used that diction very intentionally, because because by saying that Senate, he's like, this is this thing over there. It doesn't interest me. I don't know anything about it. I don't care anything about it. All I care is that I can control it. Payne, Jim. Senator Payne interrupts Taylor because he thinks he's crossing the line. He's way across the line already. Payne is corrupt, but deep down inside he has a bad conscience about it. And he definitely is not interested in doing harm to people in pursuit of him and Jim Taylor's corrupt purposes. Taylor, sharply, just a minute, Joe. Payne, fighting. You can't say that to Taylor. I know what I'm doing. I'll say what I want. Payne rushes to the door and is gone. There is silence for an instant. Jeff rises. Taylor, sit down, Mr. Smith. I'm not through. Jeff remains standing. Taylor, as I was saying, the state needs men like you, smart men, indicating the boys. Now, these boys are, and they've been doing all right. They don't have to worry about being reelected or anything else. They take my advice, and they'll go a lot farther yet. So you see, you've got a pretty important question to settle for yourself, Smith. But you're smart. You can decide that right now, can't you? Jeff looks from Taylor to the other boys. Taylor, after a pause. Can't you? Smith, quietly. You mean you tell these men and Senator Payne what to do? Taylor, yes, I've told Senator Payne for 20 years. He looks right in his face glaringly and says, you're a liar. Just like I just said. Jeff turns and starts for the door. Taylor rushes after him. Taylor, Smith, stopping him at the door. You heard what I said, and I've got to have your answer now. As Jeff starts to go, listen, to put it another way, if you've got any full notion of bucking this thing, if you open your mouth when that bill is read in the Senate tomorrow, if you so much as lift a finger to stop it, you're through. Like no man ever was. I'm all ready for you, understand? I give you my word on that. You're finished. Jeff grabs violently for the door and barges out. Incorruptible. Let's see. And here's something else I wrote. Here's a note I wrote at a later date. Kirsten, Gillinbrand, and Jefferson Smith. The ironic parallels between Jefferson Smith's fictional description of a naive but incorruptible U.S. Senator in the Frank Capra classic movie Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and the utter reality of Kirsten Gillinbrand's totally corrupt change of party and change of ideology as a result of, and resulting in, her appointment as U.S. Senator from the state of New York. She wasn't always anti-gun. Gillinbrand is a perfect example of the kind of vermin trash who are stealing our money and stashing it away. Remember the scene Mr. Smith Goes to Washington when they brought totally honest and not corrupt Senator Jefferson into their office, and Jim Taylor says, you like being a senator? We can arrange it so you stay in the Senate for the next 20 years. I would bet my left testicles that exact dialogue was spoken to Gillinbrand when they offered Clinton's Senate seat to her. When she was nobody in New York State Assembly, she was the most outspoken pro-gun voice in the entire Northeast at any level, federal, state, municipal. After she took the seat in the Senate, after she took her Senate seat, she suddenly changed her views and became one of the most vocal anti-gun retards in the entire nation. What happened to change her mind so suddenly? See, these are the kind of corrupt pieces of shit we have running our country, not counting Trump and his people, of course. Who, Chappaquiddick? After Senator Kennedy left Mary Jo Kopechne to drown in the waterway he drove his car into, not only did he face no criminal charges, but he continued in his Senate seat for another 30-something years. Who is the fixer in the nihilistic Democrat Party who protects these scum? We need to root them out. These are the human garbage that steal our money and literally turn our country into a third world socialist dictatorship. That's what they're trying to do. It doesn't harm them because they're making all the rest of us poorer and poorer and making themselves richer and richer. So in third world dictatorships and socialist lunatic asylum nations, the people at the top have so much money they can just, you know, if everything goes to the shit and the people finally wise up and revolt physically, violently, militarily, they can just like warm up the choppers and sail away. You know, they can go live in Singapore or Madagascar or some other luxurious beachfront nation. You know, in some country like Egypt or Venezuela, they can fly away, and even if the people revolt and take over and demand their return so they can lynch their asses, which is what they deserve, they don't have the money or the military or the power or the influence in the United Nations, in the country as a whole, to be able to go do that, to go get them. But the United States does. And that's where these people they take off their thinking caps, because they get so fat and lazy. They get so accustomed to having everything they want and their corruption and just like wallowing in their fucking corruption that they that they stop thinking about what dangers are. Whenever I make a decision, I think first, well, what bad things could possibly result from this? I already know what good things, or I wouldn't be considering making the decision in the first place. I always focus on those things. They're too tired out to do that. They're too fat and lazy. It's like, if you ever watched Monty Python back in the 70s and the 60s, it's like the upper class twits, you know, the landed gentry, the viscounts and the dukes and all these other petty families who, you know, are part of, are distant cousins to the monarchy or something like that. They've been in that position. They've been landed gentry for centuries. So generation by generation, they dumb themselves down just out of lazy piggery. And that's what you see in the Democrat Party. That's why you see somebody like Hillary Clinton saying, what the matter is it now, in the Senate hearing about the people that she let get slaughtered in Benghazi because she didn't do anything about it when she was begged for months to help them with the security there. Or some disgusting slob. You know, it's like, it hurts, it really revolts me, because, you know, I see these people, I contemplate these people, and they're so vile. I want to kill. If I could kill them and get away with it, if I could kill them with immunity, I'd go do it I'd get up in the middle of making this video, and I'd walk to DC and go get their asses if I could. Okay, if I could get away with it. I'm not saying I'm doing it, but I dream about it. Okay? You know, it's like Nancy Pelosi saying, what was it she said? Let's pass the bill so we can see what's in it. You know, this is like a person who has ceased to think 90%. She's got 10% thinking ability left so that she can at least promote the bill, try to trick people into passing it. Right? We need to root you know, who are the fixers in the nihilist Democrat Party who protect these scum? We need to root them out. These are the human garbage that steal our money and literally run our country into a third world socialist dictatorship. Of course, with their people running everything. Americans, we have to get rid of these people. It is number one on the list of fixing this country permanently, which is saving the country, because they're trying to harm it. They are trying to destroy it. They are trying to get rid of the Constitution. And that's no fucking joke. Thank you for your time.